Can we really view these auto tariffs in a vacuum, or is their economic impact not so much about those tariffs alone, but how they work in conjunction with all of the other levies we have seen or expect to see?
Oh, yeah, it's great to be watching, waiting for this announcement with you tonight. Joe's absolutely right. We're waiting to see how these tariffs are going to interact with one another. What we do know already is the tariffs on steel and aluminum, such as they are, will increase the price of steel in the U.S. That will drive up the cost of autos. We've already seen auto prices going up. That's going to continue. These tariffs, if they go ahead tonight, will further increase the price of autos. And of course, it will reduce domestic sales because people are getting to the point where they need to drive their vehicles longer, postpone buying that car because the price will be increasing significantly depending on the rate that's announced tonight.
Mm-hmm. But wait, Mary, this is Donald Trump. Aren't we going to have a 30-day review period and everybody comes back in off the ledge after the president makes the first announcement of the first salvo?
Well, we may, and that presumably is to give time for our trading partners to negotiate. It's not clear what will be negotiated in this case. One of the problems with driving up the cost of producing in the United States is that, low tariffs no longer become viable. The U.S. has a 2.5% tariff on vehicles. That has allowed the U.S. to have a vibrant market. It has allowed sort of niche consumers to find vehicles that are made in other countries for sale here. Cars that are sold in large quantities, minivans, SUVs, tend to be, made in North America. So we're going to see reduced choice for Americans. What would come from waiting for another month? It's really not clear. Auto executives, auto companies are not able to, as you know very well, rearrange their supply chains in 1 month. And they're already still reeling from really trying to figure out what is the meaning and how long-lasting will be the tariffs that have already been placed on Canada and Mexico on so-called non-compliant goods. Non-compliant with the USMCA, of course. And then we're waiting, of course, for next week when we find out for more tariffs on trading partners and different sectors.
Well, and when you bring up Mexico, obviously that is one of the biggest market from which the U.S. imports autos. Another big one is Europe as well, which hasn't been shy about retaliating against the levies the U.S. has put into place. Mary, how should we be viewing the other side of this, the tariffs on U.S. products that could come as a result?
Well, they're very destructive to our exporters, which are among the most productive, innovative companies in the U.S., including our ag exporters. They're going to feel the pain. The U.S. Farm Bureau is already arguing about the impact of the tariffs on its farmers, on potash, for example, driving up the cost for American farmers. They're going to be locked out of markets. Our autos will be locked out of foreign markets. They'll face similarly high tariffs. So President Trump is, I think, expected to announce that levies are going to be low, relatively low in his view. I'm sure they'll be high from the point of view of our trading partners, but that we may, in fact, go higher if countries want to retaliate. So it's really going to be a double threat that we see, or at least that's what we're expecting. Nevertheless, countries may feel that they're backed into a wall and that the only thing they really can do is to retaliate.
The president calls it Liberation Day, right? A week from today, the reciprocal tariffs. Mary, is there some truth to that if, in fact, this leads to zeroing out our trade relationships with partners in Europe, with our partners even here in North America? If that is actually the aim for other countries to take down their tariffs, is that, in fact, the definition of Liberation Day?
Well, I mean, there's lots of misuses of the English language here. First of all, reciprocal suggests that these, in some sense, are fair. We have negotiated in good faith in the past with our trading partners. If there's new issues, we should negotiate them. People will argue with that, but this kind of really threatening tariffs, threatening different actions against foreign partners is unlikely to really get where we want to be, which is low trading partners, level playing field for U.S. producers. the idea of Liberation Day really should be called Steal from Your Wallet Day, because that's what will happen. We're going to see higher prices for many goods that U.S. businesses buy to keep themselves competitive. They're going to be whacked with tariffs abroad. We're going to see U.S. households paying higher prices on all types of goods. Today we're discussing autos. Next week we'll probably be discussing some other product.
Mary, just when we consider the wallet impact, how much are you expecting the kind of front running of the tariffs, the pre-purchasing that businesses have engaged with in the expectation that tariffs are coming to build up inventories? For how long can that offset some of the immediate effects of these, what will ultimately, assumably, become price hikes?
Yeah, we have definitely seen front running by U.S. Retailers and even companies stocking up on essential supplies. The ports have been busy. It can't go that far. You know, there's a limit to how much warehouses can hold, how much working capital companies can tie up in inventory. And of course, for retailers, there's changes in preferences and in demand. Right now, retailers are trying to stock up for the back to school season. That means that, you know, these tariffs will hit before they stock up for the Christmas season. So there's really a limit to how much. They're trying to minimize the damage as best they can, but there's no such thing as a free lunch here. It's going to be costly. And of course, that will end up as tariff revenue, which will most likely be used to offset President Trump's extension of the tax cuts. And that is, of course, a big shift in the burden of who pays for government services in this country.